All right, we're going to get going on the Budget and Finance Committee. Before we get going, I'm going to mention a couple of notes, just to recap some recent events and put a couple things on your radar screen. First, there was the announcement a couple weeks ago about the $18 million for the pedestrian bridge being retasked to other needed infrastructure projects. I think we have legislation today that deals with 1 million of the 18 million, and I wanted to let you know that at our next meeting we should have legislation that deals with the other 17 million of it. I think there's an argument that that doesn't have to come before us, but the administration feels like they want to have us look at it, and I asked them if they could have that come before us, and they're going to. That'll be at our next meeting. I want to mention also that there's been a lot of questions that I've heard both from the public and from some council members about the comptroller's power and exactly what the rights are. And the easiest way I can describe it, and this is I think more for the benefit of the public watching, but also for committee members, is it's very clear what the power is, but there's also some discretion about it, which creates maybe uncertainty for us as we go forward. What's clear is that the power is expansive. The comptroller really has a laundry list of powers up to and including taking over Metro's finances. He's been clear that he doesn't want to do that, but really any given week it's his discretion whether he feels like the city's making enough progress on the plan on dealing with its budget. So again, it's really clear what the power is. It's very expansive, but it also comes with a lot of discretion. There has been some media coverage on Friday about increase for MNPS employees starting January 1st, $7.5 million. I talked to finance about that earlier today, and it's clear that their intention is that that be funded either directly by MNPS or otherwise if that needs to be the case. But as so much other things right now, it's a work in progress about what the exact game plan is. And I know they're working hard on it downstairs in the mayor's office, finance department, to work on that. Finally, I want to mention that when the comptroller's here, I said that Mr. Crumbo, Director of Finance, would come make a presentation to the council in December. That is going to be on December 11 at 4:30 p.m. here in the chamber. At that time, the Director of Finance will come and make a presentation to the Budget and Finance Committee. All council members are invited. It is expected that Mr. Crumbo will provide the committee with an update about our ongoing and developing response to the city's budget challenges at that time. And I know I just said a lot, and if there's any questions about those general comments before we get going, I'll entertain those. Hopefully I was clear, but maybe not. All right, not seeing any, we're going to jump into the agenda. First item is Resolution RS 2019-90. Sponsor Mendez authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Andrea Neal against Metro government in the amount of $100,000. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Resolution RS 2019-91, Mendez, Hurt, and others, approves an amendment to a grant contract from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to improve the health of those residing in or visiting Davidson County to prevent and control the use of tobacco products. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. RS 2019-92, Mendez, Hurt, Welsh, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to provide viral hepatitis program services aimed at prevention, testing, diagnosis, surveillance, and linkage to treatment and other support services. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. RS 2019-97, Mendez Hurt and Others, approves an opioid overdose reduction program grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Metro Board of Health to address prescription drug and opioid misuse, save lives, and reduce crime through a comprehensive and collaborative approach. Any discussion? Mr. Glover.
Just very quickly, Director Cooper, so I know we adopted in the last session, to utilize a law firm to look at the opioid, and this may be the wrong time to ask the question. And this doesn't necessarily deal with that. However, I think the overall purpose of it was to cut down on the usage and hopefully, how are all these things blending now that the federal government, state government, and then obviously local government have gotten involved and kind of attacking this? And while I realize this is a grant, how are we monitoring every aspect of it? And I realize that's a several layered question.
So the health department can speak to the grant aspect and the programs that they have undertaken and are undertaking. Metro, if you recall, retained Leif Cabraser to pursue litigation on Metro's behalf.
Right.
They have done that, and we are part of the multi-district federal litigation with 1,500 other jurisdictions. Metro is on the settlement steering committee, which is a small group of plaintiffs that are involved. So we are still heavily involved in the litigation, but there's no resolution yet.
Okay, well, and that's fine. What I'm trying to, I guess, understand and comprehend is, are all these kind of working in unison with one another, or are they, kind of competing on what they're trying to accomplish?
I think so. For purposes of the litigation, we had to file some documentation regarding the expenses that we have incurred over the years, and so we relied on fire department, EMS, hospitals, health department to come up with that data. So the health department is probably best able to speak to what we're doing, since they have the opioid response coordinator position within the department.
Okay, so let me just make sure I kind of break this down on what I think I've heard. So everything that's in play is still in play. This is just another part of, and nothing is conflicting.
Correct.
In order to hinder
Right.
where we go on any of the other pieces. Okay, sorry, Chair. I just, this is an ongoing conversation that I really just don't know the answers to.
I think this is an important question, and if Mr. Sharp doesn't mind, he can comment real quickly. It's a good question. And if he needs to tell us, he needs to get us more information, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Glover, these are unrelated events. The lawsuit is against manufacturers and distributors and so forth, and that's an entirely different issue. This money comes to us from the Department of Justice, which is trying to sort of wrap its arms around how to respond to these issues. We'll do a lot of things with a lot of surveillance, we have 2 or 3 programs for child death review, fetal death review. Both of those required certain alterations to state law to allow a pretty diverse group of people to look at medical records that they might not otherwise have access to. So you can look at what happened in an individual case and try to figure out where the system could be better. There will be some of that involved in this. We will have an epidemiologist. We're going to try to do an OD map, try to run real-time overdoses in the community, so that if there is a spike somewhere or another, we can alert everybody, say there's a bad batch of something here. There's several different things that go into this.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further discussion, it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. RS 2019-98, Mendez, Pulley, and others, approves a Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act grant from the United States Department of Justice to the Metro Police Department to improve the delivery of and access to mental health and wellness services for law enforcement agencies. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. Now, these next two have to do with the 1 million of the 18 million from the bridge, and again, the other 17 million will come in legislation at our next meeting. But today we've got RS 2019-99, Mendez Hancock, reduces the authority of Metro government to issue general obligation bonds pursuant to Resolution RS 2013-710, previously adopted by the Metro Council. There is some discussion. Mr. Roten?
Mr. Chair, could you, someone help me if I'm wrong. When we did the bridge, it was my understanding that property in the gulch was going to be taxed to pay for that. Is that not happening anymore? Or can someone explain to me where the money's coming from now?
Well, I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Cooper, but I'm going to say it more directly than he probably will. That was an aspirational press release and never got turned into reality.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Any further?
No.
All right. Next, Councilmember Toombs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that 17 million, is that going to be new debt? And if so, can we borrow more money, considering the comptroller's report?
I'm going to let Mr. Cooper describe how that works.
So the authorization of the 18 million for the pedestrian bridge project, that did not actually appropriate any money. There's not a bundle of money sitting there for that project. That just authorized the access of the commercial paper program to start the project until the long-term bonds are issued. So we would be, that money is not there. We would be incurring debt to proceed with the projects. But the authorization was given by the council in 2013.
And I'm sure you're going to follow up, but let me add that when I went with the mayor to see the comptroller on October 3rd, the mayor specifically asked whether we were being told to stop capital spending, and the comptroller at that time was very clear that no, that there's any city, 500 square miles at any given time, there's things that have worn out that need to be replaced, and we're not at a full stop by any stretch of the imagination. I think the appropriate question for the committee is really just how urgent these other projects are, and I've been relying on the district council members who've got the projects in their district, and I haven't heard anybody tell me that something on the list is fluff, but I think that's the right question for us to ask. Do you have any follow-up from Mr. Cooper? All right, Mr. Glover?
So here's the follow-up that I have. So the determination was made out of the mayor's office with regards to where the money would be spent. Now, I realize that this particular resolution kind of takes the money as a whole, I think, even going forward. Mr. Cooper, is that a fair assessment of the way I've read the analysis?
These two resolutions take $1 million of the 18 million. The other 17, it's my understanding, will be coming in another resolution.
Okay. But we're starting to play with the handing out of, quote, the money with this.
This would reallocate funding for other projects, yes.
Okay, so here's my question. So we have 35 district council members. Have we brought them all together to sit down? If we're going to redistribute the money, because this decision was made in 2013, if we're going to sit down and redistribute the money, have we actually sat down with each one of the council members to determine and look at what the actual priorities are in their districts to determine if, in fact, the redistribution of the money is being spent in the right places? And I know, being a former district council member, that I would sit there and argue for my district. I also know there was virtually nothing done out there. So I'm just trying to understand if before we go ahead and start passing these things, then, and you're right, Chair, I know there are things that we need to do with the infrastructure piece, but what kind of evaluation has it gone through as far as each one of the district council members having an opportunity to step up to the plate and speak on behalf of their district with the particular needs they may see as urgent versus others that didn't get included in this? I don't know who I should ask that question to.
I would probably defer to the administration. My assumption is that Public Works gave the mayor's office a list of projects that they deemed to be priorities, but I'll.
Uh-oh, we're bringing out Jameson. I'm in trouble.
The Public Works Department did identify capital needs requests. This was not their term, but they were urgent or emergent in their prioritization and made that recommendation to the administration for the allocation of these monies to be spent there. They cover, I believe, 24 of the 35 council districts. The great majority of them apply to bridge repairs that have been identified by the state as urgent or emergent, for which there's just no short-term remedy other than actual repairs. A lot of culverts that are stormwater related, deemed urgent or emergent for repair. And I can send a list to you, the complete list from the Public Works Department. I'll send it to the entire council just so you've got that listing.
So then I'm going to be real tacky because frankly, I mean, as an at-large member now, it doesn't affect, quote, it doesn't affect my councilmatic district anymore. But is there a possibility, if there's not such an urgency that we have to do this today, can we see that information and can we understand it a bit, I guess, have a greater depth and on how we're looking into it? Because right here, literally, it's got, what, 3 or 4 paragraphs that we read in the analysis, and I really don't understand how the district council members had an opportunity to speak on behalf of what they really needed, and maybe they did, Mr. Jameson. I don't see it here, and I think it's worth that conversation. If we're going to go ahead and extend the debt, if we're going to go ahead and increase our debt, load and repayment, I think it would be a good idea to have that type of conversation.
Sure. Why don't I get that list to the entire council member at the close of this committee meeting, and then that'll give you, maybe by tomorrow, you'll have a comfort level, maybe not, but at least have it tonight and tomorrow morning for review.
Okay, well, then I'm going to go back very quickly, if I may, prior to, giving up the microphone, if you don't mind, Chair. Rather than getting it this quickly, is there something that needs to be done on a bridge or a street or anything that is literally that critical that if we don't take care of it right now today, will create a nuisance or a public disturbance and even potentially harm to the public if we don't do that right now, today, and tomorrow night pass it?
So, Councilman, this one actually, these two resolutions only deal with the $1 million,
Right.
$500,000 for trash carts and $500,000 for street lighting. So the next resolutions that will be coming will deal with the allocation of the remaining $17 million, which will cover those 24 district projects.
Right, and so therefore, if we're breaking it up, I'm trying to understand why are we breaking it up? Because, and I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck, but yet I will go ahead and be a smart aleck because it does not appear to me that this is critical. So until we kind of see the overall picture, I'm trying to understand the reason why we're breaking it up as well. And with that, if it's not going to hinder anything, I'm really going to ask for us to defer it and let's kind of look at it all together to where each one of the district council members have an opportunity to kind of give an input to it as we go forward.
Well, I'll give you a chance to make a motion. I
Yeah,
do
that's
on this
fine.
topic want to make sure to say it's not going to be geographically even.
Well, I don't doubt that.
I know that districts 1 and 3 are pretty heavily loaded in here because with bridges and culverts and all the geography that they cover, there's a weighting in that direction, I know. So I don't, if we end up pushing it off, I want to make sure we don't get into trying to divide it by 35.
Yeah, well, let's make sure that we're real clear on what I'm trying to accomplish. is, understanding how we got to where we are right now. If we're going to re-divvy the money, why did it get divvied up that way? And if in fact we have that and it's not in the analysis, does it hurt us to wait for one more meeting in order for it to come back to us? And then at that point, Chair, it may well be that we say, absolutely, that's fine, and we proceed with it. I just think that if we're going to talk about transparency, let's begin the process immediately on, if we're going to move 18 million from the bridge to nowhere into other projects, then let's be transparent about it and just be thorough with the way we look at how we're spending money going forward, given the consequences that we're now realizing.
So I've got 4 other people in the
Yep.
queue.
So if you want me to come back on, so I will wait if you will recognize me, and I will move my motion.
All right. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 questions. One, does this beginning to take this $1 million away begin to defund the bridge so that we can officially say it's not happening? I mean, is that kind of a symbolic consequence of this bill in particular?
Well, I think the administration saying it's not going to happen is probably
More symbolic, okay.
a concrete, it's not going forward.
Second question is, was this 18 million part of that year's capital spending plan, and we're replacing the money in that capital spending plan? And that gets me back to the capital improvement budget process that we keep hoping to rejigger in a way that we feel like is transparent and quantitative in terms of how we prioritize things, which got back down to each council member scoring things that were very important to them, and that butted up against projects that Public Works deemed to be important. And I would just say this is yet another example of why I think we need to think through that process before our next budget cycle is complete, so that we have kind of an official way to lay out where everyone can see what we have determined to be most important.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vercher.
Councilman Glover asked a lot of my questions. I'll support the deferral because I'm interested to know how the districts were chosen also, but I'll support the deferral.
Thank you. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you. For lack of repeating what everyone says, I would like to defer as well. My only question is that we're looking at 99 and 100. 99 is actually saying that we're moving out the 18 million, so we can actually work on 99 and then defer 100. Is that correct?
No, they're really companions. One of them deauthorizes $1 million, the other allocates $1 million. So we're only dealing with $1 million in these 2 resolutions.
Third 99 deauthorizes 18 million as I'm looking at the detail. I may not be looking at it right, but I thought it deauthorizes the 18 million,
Just 1 million.
just 1 million. All right. Thanks.
Councilmember Toombs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the 99, I'm not understanding why deferment will be necessary, because that's just taking $1 million away, and you still have that $17 million chunk, which at some subsequent meeting that we will be presented with how that's going to be allocated.
Yeah.
I think, I personally think if we wanted to split them up, that would be okay.
Okay. So I think it's fine with the 100, because that's allocating another $1 million. So I can understand wanting to really understand where that $1 million is going, but I don't think a deferral is necessary for 99.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilmember Roten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question. You had brought up the culverts and the bridges. Does Public Works have a list of the emergent culverts and bridges that I have not seen? Which ones are needing repair today? Which ones need repair in 6 months? Which ones need repair in 2 years? We can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at, since y'all brought that up.
I'm going to toss that one to Mr. Jamison.
Councilmember Roten, indeed they do. Public Works has prepared that list, and I'm going to submit it to the council members as soon as we're done with the committee meetings.
And the reason I bring it up is because last year, a bridge that basically shut down my entire district was repaired without even notification being given to me, and it was closed for 6 months, and people are having to drive 5 miles around just to get to something that's, right across the bridge. So that's the kind of thing that we need to know is coming up before they start working on it. So, thank you.
Mr. Glover.
Okay, so Chair, I'm gonna ask you the question, and then if you wouldn't mind, dissect it and determine which way it should go. I don't care if we deferred 99 and 100 both. In the analysis, they were put in the same. They were lumped together, and so therefore that's kind of why I was looking at it that way. If we want to pass 99, I guess. I mean, I don't personally have heartburn on that. And then we defer 100. It's just whatever we think as a committee is the right way to go. And with that, Chair, I will make the motion to defer 99 and 100. And then if you want to re-refer it back to me just to defer one of those or withdraw one of those, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Well, just because I haven't read the caption on 100 yet, let's do them separately.
Okay.
And then I think it's, I could go either way on it. I guess to Councilmember Allen and Toombs's point, if we want to go into more than symbolically, but actually making sure the bridge couldn't happen, defunding the million in 99 would be appropriate, and then I personally think the million of spending on the garbage cans and
Streetlights.
Which is 100, correct, Mr. Cooper?
yeah,
Okay.
right.
Then I tell you what, Chair, because I don't want to be redundant on what I'm going to say. If you wouldn't mind, I will not move to defer 99. I will move to defer 100.
When we get there.
If you think that's appropriate, if you wouldn't mind recognizing me on that, sir.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So anybody care to make a different motion on 99 other than for recommending approval? There's nobody else in discussion. We've got a motion to recommend approval of 99. There's been a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, we recommend approval for 99. Moving on to RS 2019-100, issues general obligation bonds of Metro government in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1 million. Is there a motion? Is there a second? All right, we've got 2 people in the queue. I know you're going to make the motion, so I'm going to start with Councilmember Allen.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just want to clarify, when we say this is a resolution to issue general obligation bonds, we're not actually saying we want to issue those bonds right away. We're just saying in the future that will happen, correct?
This is an initial resolution, just like every other, when we do a capital spending plan, it would follow the same logistics of first commercial paper and then ultimately a bond issuance.
Great. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Mr. Glover.
So I think then at that point, or regarding that point, while we're not going to go ahead and issue the paper issue the bond right away, I do believe that if we can look at all the information and we have it before us to understand what we are actually kind of looking at collectively in the full amount, I would appreciate if we would consider, and I will now move, that we defer one meeting until we can look at all the aspects of it. So with that, I move to defer one meeting on 100, please.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor of the motion to defer this resolution one meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We recommend deferral one meeting. Now we're on to bills on second reading. BL 2019-42, sponsor Mendez, amends the Metro Code regarding appraisal reports for the sale, purchase, lease, sublease, or other disposition of property owned by Metro government. Is there a motion? Mr. Cooper, can you describe what this one does, please?
This ordinance takes out the requirement that you have a prospective appraisal when Metro is acquiring property. So you would just have a current value appraisal. If we are disposing of property, selling it or transferring it, then we would still require the prospective appraisal.
And just put meat on this, a couple of years ago, after we got, as a group, appraisals on the fairground 10 acres and on Church Street that struck a lot of us as not really appropriate appraisals, we passed this to require better appraisals that showed not only the current value, but the value after whatever zoning or entitlement changes the new owner was looking at were in place. That's when we passed this. In reality, we've seen that if Metro is just trying to buy a random piece of property itself, no specific economic development, that we may negotiate against ourselves by getting appraisal. And so the idea is to take that situation out. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I guess I was not clear as to why we do not need it anymore, because I thought it means that we want to know the value even after we acquire it in case there's something. So why would we not want to do that even when we're buying property? Just for clarification.
So I think as Councilman Mendez said, you could run the risk of kind of bargaining against yourself. If you have an appraisal that says, okay, after these entitlements or this zoning, then it's worth X higher, but we could have bought it for lower with a current value appraisal. That's just to ensure that if we're buying the property, that we're buying it at the best price possible.
Is it possible for it to go the other way? Could a property now have a lower value because something happened after we got the current value?
Well, I mean, I guess if there was some environmental concern or something that was unknown at the time.
Okay.
Mr. Glover.
I'm going to expand the question if I may. So if we see something that we feel like is a good value and we decide, hey, we want to buy this, do we do any type of internal appraisals to where we evaluate? I mean, I hate to, I was going to say the Zillow, but do we look at the cost per foot and do we do the comparisons and the comps around that piece of property to determine if it in fact is a good deal we're trying to buy?
As the law stands now, you have to have that appraisal already anytime we're acquiring property or disposing of property.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm trying to understand exactly, and I was trying to listen, Chair, on what exactly this changes. And as I read through the analysis, I'll just tell you, because this is not what I do in my day job. I was trying to understand, all right, what exactly are we changing here?
So I'm not sure who the right person in the administration is, but I'm going to let somebody I'm going to let somebody in the administration take a crack at it.
Okay.
But I'll go ahead and tell you that I was first asked about making this tweak last spring, and I've resisted mostly because of the Church Street swap. Like I didn't want to take out a scenario where the city would appraise one side of the Church Street swap. And so I was pushing back. And so you'll see in the language, if it's a swap situation, you still need the appraisal. And as I've understood it, it's basically for ordinary, fairly mundane acquisitions. I understand there are informal test of value that the city will do, and they feel like getting the appraisal puts us in a worse negotiating position in those situations. And maybe somebody in the administration has a better answer than that. I'm not sure. Looks like I nailed it.
Okay, well.
I mean, that's, and like I said, I pushed back on this since last spring because I've, how many times do we feel in this room like we've been burned lately?
just about every time we gather, but yeah.
I was asked that there are some basic purchases that are not interesting that we would just systematically overpay for.
All right, so then, and Mr. Cooper, as I read the analysis, or as I've read the analysis on this, this is not anything that's going to be restrictive in a way that's going to hurt the city financially.
No, this is to help the city financially.
Okay, and again, it was a challenge for me trying to understand exactly where we were trying to go with it, but okay, thank you, Chair.
Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. Next, we're on BL 2019-43, Mendez Toombs and others, amends the Metro Code to require certain financial communications from the state of Tennessee to be submitted to the Metro Council. Is there a motion? And there's an amendment on this one, too, if somebody would like to move that. All right, Mr. Cooper, can you describe the bill and the amendment?
Yes, the amendment, well, the bill as it stands now requires that any financial communication that Metro receives from the state be forwarded to the council within 7 days. That is in response to the council not being aware of some of the comptroller communications from the prior year. So that's the purpose of the bill. The finance department raised a concern about maybe it being overbroad and that it would apply potentially to every communication with the state regarding state grants, for which there are, hundreds and hundreds of emails. So the amendment is to narrow that. So it exempts grants, routine type things. All other financial communications would come to me unless it's communication that reflects negatively on Metro's financial status, and the amendment defines what that means. And in that case, it would come both to me and directly to the council members.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Mr. Roten?
I don't know how to say this in a, I don't know, yeah, I'm going to say this. Putting out there, I guess all this that would be sent to us would be public, correct?
Yeah, so the ordinance only applies if it's public record. So if there was something that for whatever reason fell within one of the exceptions to the Public Records Act and was confidential, then that would not be forwarded.
Right, so I always see the comptroller's office and, everyone from the state marching up to New York every year for the bond ratings on the state or or something with Metro, and I'm just kind of curious how much information gets out there that would affect our bond rating. Is there any way that you can see that this would negatively affect a bond rating if there was negative information being sent to us and then that information getting out and then costing us a whole lot more money? That's the only thing I'm kind of thinking of.
I don't think so, because we have continuing disclosure requirements anyway under the bond covenants. So I don't think that would be an issue.
I mean, I'm on the bill. I'm just kind of thinking through it. So thank you.
Sure. So I don't see any further discussion. We're on the amendment. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Can somebody move the bill as amended? Any discussion on the bill as amended? It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. We recommend approval as amended. Next is BL 2019-45, Mendez, Henderson, Glover, amends several sections of the Metro Code, is what I have on the sheet. We'll call this is the water rate bill. So is there a motion? And there are a couple amendments in the package. One of them is housekeeping amendment number 2. So let's start with the housekeeping one. And somebody want to move that, and then Mr. Cooper can explain it. Mr. Cooper.
So this amendment came from Metro Water in consultation with the comptroller's office, and it clarifies that for non-residential customers, that any usage 2 CCF or less, which I learned today is centum cubic feet, if you wanted to know, 748 gallons per CCF. So if you're non-residential, you use 2 or less, then you would not pay the volumetric charge. But anything over 2 would, which is the same for residential.
Any discussion on this housekeeping amendment? Councilmember Allen?
Thank you. Can I just get someone from Water Services to point out what's paying for that flat rate? Does that come in the meter fee, where they pay for that initial 200 cubic feet of usage?
Yes, ma'am. The base fee, that fixed charge, includes that 0 to 2 CCF.
Great, okay, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on Amendment 2, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Glover, do you want to move the other amendment?
Thank you, Chair. So I think there was some discussion at the last meeting, and Chair, if you'll indulge me for a second, I'm going to, I guess, ask Mr. Cooper a few questions, if I may.
Sure.
I think there was some confusion on, is this amendable on second or third reading? Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not pointing fingers, but I think the conclusion was only on second, so I kind of rushed to bring an amendment. Upon further evaluation of our rules, you have determined that we actually can amend on third.
Yeah, so the rules now allow bills dealing with revenue service charges to be amendable on third reading. And
Okay.
so this is a service charge that generates revenue, so I arguably it falls under that category.
Okay, so with that, Chair, what I'm not going to introduce the amendment today. I will tell you that I've spoken with the state. They don't have heartburn over what I'm trying to accomplish. And let me just say, we're going to clean up a little bit more of the language and bring it back on third reading. And here's why. I had a conversation with Water today, along with the conversation with the state today. And I guess I'll just go ahead and say it the way I said it on the phone to one of the groups. My trust level is not very high in a number of areas because, frankly, I don't like the way some of this has transpired. And I think we're all trying to get our hands around it. With that being said, I do believe the amendment that I'm proposing, while I never, ever want to take money out of a taxpayer or a bill payer's pocket, I do believe that it does not hurt us to perhaps get a little more prepared in the event of another 2010 flood. That being said, I think there are some tweaks we can do to this amendment that will make it much more friendly. So when we come back together, then I will offer the amendment that I think would be perhaps more palatable for everyone on the floor. So with that, no, I'm not going to introduce it. And again, Mr. Cooper, I'm just going to clarify, because of the rule change, then we don't have any hesitation with regards to bringing back this type of amendment on third. All right, thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Glover. All right, so we've got BL 2019-45 with amendment number 2 on it. And so if somebody wants to move it as amended with a second somewhere. And then we hustled the Water Services Department out of the chair last week. And so if anybody's got any more questions about the water rate, now's the time to ask. And we've got Council Lady Vercher first.
Thank you so much, Chair. I have a couple. I've kind of streamlined them. I'll start with, just for the viewing audience, because this is an enterprise fund, if we can just convey what that is and what those funds can actually be paid for, salaries and so forth. And that's one of the reasons I'm wanting that to be conveyed to the public, because one of my questions to Director Porter during the special meeting is that I was asking just the presence coming before this body for a number of years, and we were told everything was fine, and his response was yes on the operating, but on the capital, no. So what that does, it creates just more confusion for my constituents. And many of you know that I really had heartburn with the stormwater fee. So want to make sure that we get that clarity, that part of it. And then my second question, what are we going to do for the plans as it relates to combo lines? Will we have a capital plan that would be disseminated to this body so that we would know how these additional funds will be spent? And you get my questions, Director? Okay.
I hope so.
All right. Also, community outreach for stormwater. We had extensive community outreach, and Metro Water can tell you the number of hours that they put in as it relates to this. Not saying that is not needed, but my sentiment, Councilman Glover, you're on a roll today. I'm agreeing with you, so you're 2 for 2 today. Agreeing with Councilman Glover, just when we have department heads that come before this body, the onus is on us to hold them accountable. So when I ask questions, it's not about dislike or personalities as it relates to the department heads. But for us to be at the 11th hour with everything that this city has endured in the last couple of years, to find out that there have been communications for years of fiscal distress for one of the most important departments here in the city, and for no one to ring their alarm, I'm perplexed by that. In the private sector, you'll be terminated immediately because that's gross negligence. Something of this magnitude, this body should not have had to have the comptroller come before us and tell us about the fiscal distress for our Metro Water Department. That falls on the director himself, not the administration. Many of you, we sat through hours of budget hearings, and we comb some of these department heads over the coals because we know we're making decisions based upon the information that we're receiving at hand. If this director had provided us with this information, maybe we would have made different decisions. I'm almost certain we probably would have. So I asked the director when we had this special meeting, how do we, better yet, how do I reconcile this with my constituents when you've come before this body not advocating for capital monies, not advocating for capital dollars for projects? You did come advocating for the flood wall. I do remember that. But even during those conversations, it was never, you never rang the alarm, Director Potter. You never rang it. He never rang it, Chair. I'm asking my colleagues, we can't always play nice. We have to ask the questions that gets us to the answers so that we can serve this city. All these headlines in the media about the mess and so forth as it relates to the city, we have to start asking better questions. So, Director Potter. I'm sorry, Chair. That's out of habit. I'm sorry.
2 years sitting up here. You're used to it. I'm just going to have a brief comment because I was sort of wide-ranging and then hand it over to Director Potter. Listen, I mean, I share the frustration about the department being declared distressed by the state and us not knowing about it, and maybe there were some breadcrumbs, but to your point, you know, the full force and effect of what was going on was not known to the council, I don't think. You know, to me, I think fundamentally, we've got an oversight role, and we didn't manage to figure it out either. So we're, at least from my perspective, we're not without blame because we didn't manage to figure it out. And our big tool is legislation, and we're getting ready to pass legislation, some that's on the agenda now. and it's going to make it so it won't happen again. And so at least we've got our part taken care of, or we're in the midst of taking care of it. And so I feel good about that, to deal with the part of it where we as a body, I say we, the previous term, the first termers, I think, are off the hook on this. We're not without blame for not figuring it out. But your questions and the angst behind your questions are completely 1,000% fair, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Potter to deal with it.
Well, I'm going to start with stating, for the record, unequivocally, that I did raise the alarm. So going from that point forward, I'll say that at my O&M budget hearing, I was completely truthful and forthright with every question that was asked of me. When I said revenues were up, they were up because we had more water sold because of the growth of the city. When I said expenses were down, they were down because we were extremely aggressive in our cost control protocols. So I don't know how to say that any more plain, but I did raise the alarm.
Well, Mr. Potter, I'm going to, on behalf of at least the previous term, say that if you thought that we knew that the department was declared distressed by the state of Tennessee and had fully absorbed that information, then there was definitely some miscommunication.
I do not make that claim, Chair.
Well, telling us that you were forthright about every question.
I didn't say anything other than I told the truth.
And I accept that. And I personally believe, I've said, and I'll say again, that you may have answered every question truthfully, but you certainly, and people in the mayor's office certainly had to have known that we didn't get it. And we didn't understand the scope of what was going on, and there's no two ways about that. And I already said, at least speaking only for myself, I'll take the blame for not figuring it out. I'll take the blame for we didn't ask you enough questions to answer truthfully, apparently, for us to get it. And it won't happen again, and the city will be better off for it. But if I'm glad to hear that you're not taking the position that we understood what was going on, or that we had enough information to understand what was going on.
I'll make it as clear as I can. I made no claim that y'all were aware of the letters from the comptroller, as an example. That did not happen.
Or the orders that you had from the state distressed water board department?
I did not speak directly to that in the council chambers either.
Right.
You need to understand what I'm saying, council. I did my job.
I think we got that loud and clear. Actually, I think we got that loud and clear. And we're going to pass legislation, I submit, to make it so your job changes a little bit.
I support that action, sir.
Thank you. And so I know I sort of hijacked Councilmember Vercher's questions. The first one was about the enterprise fund.
Yes, Chair. I mean, many of us, we know how that fund works. This is just for the viewing audience, especially when the administration makes announcements of new staff and they see that a part of that salary being subsidized from Metro Water.
I think it's appropriate for the department to fund that position by 1/4 because we're going to be working very closely with that person in the next 4 years. So the way I view it is the general fund is paying for 3/4 of her budget, and the water department is paying for 1/4 of that budget. I really don't think it's fair for the general fund to pay the entire budget, her entire salary, when we are going to be working very closely with her in the next 4 years.
And will you...
Just so the viewing audience, that they understand that those funds can pay for salaries, capital, a whole gamut of things.
All right, thank you. And then I guess, Mr. Potter, you've got her other two questions.
Could you please restate them? I've lost them in the excitement.
Sure. I know the third one was about
Capital
community.
plan and community outreach.
Go ahead.
So our capital plan is submitted to the council every February, so that's on the record every year. We have 61 projects in the queue right now. That's $219 million that are essentially ready to go, and I'll supply that list to the council as well.
Anything else, Ms. Furcher?
Yeah, so the 61 wasn't part of the list from the February report, or is this a 61 additional projects?
That's in the capital plan.
Okay. And also, what's our plan as a city as it relates to our combo lines and?
Okay, we have the consent decree, of which there are two subjects, the combined system and the separate system. So on the combined system, it's called the long-term control plan, and the big project associated with that is the central optimization program. It's a $400 million project that is fully designed and ready to go. On the sanitary side, we've got numerous projects generally dealing with rehabilitation of sewer lines that are damaged due to age mostly. So concurrently, both of those plans have to be executed to meet the demands of the consent decree with the Department of Justice.
Director Potter, is the long-term, the $400 million, is that all inclusive with the sanitary, or is the sanitary an additional cost on top of the $400 million?
The $400 million is just for the central optimization program, and that is a specific address of the long-term control plan for the combined system. There's additional money totaling $1.5 billion that will cover both the combined system and the sanitary system. A good example of the sanitary system would be, and the combined system would be the Mill Creek Trunk Project, which is a $300 million project that we will initiate very quickly because we have to acquire some property to do that project.
Okay, and then Chair, just one last question, if the director can give us an update. Where are we as it relates to collections from contractors that's damaging our infrastructure? Have we changed our policy? Are we still correcting, repairing that infrastructure, and then billing the contractors on the back end for it?
Hi there, Amanda Deaton Moyer. We do, when our infrastructure is damaged, we will repair it and we bill the damaging culprit at that point, and we do that within 30 days of the damage, and we have a systematic approach where we send out the invoice and then give them 30 days, and then we start calling, and then we give them 60 days, and we give them the letter, and after that, they are sent to collections.
Okay, but during this window of 30 and 60, they can still pull permits, I believe, because we haven't changed that process part, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Glover, next.
So, Chair, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if I may, because I don't want to blur the lines on some of the things we're trying to accomplish with the oversight. But one thing before I forget, please don't let me forget. If we're doing this, especially on like my amendment, I would like to have the entire bill re-referred back to this committee. Okay, so as we go forward. All right. So let's walk through some of last Wednesday, if I may, with you, Chair. We talked through various instances. I believe it was very clear, and I firmly believe that previous administrations pretty much so instructed not only this director but other directors to not share with the council perhaps what we should have known or what we should have been told. I think we're addressing that on reports, state, and other things that will be occurring. Is that a fair assessment on what I believe we're working on accomplishing?
Yes, by having the regular reporting to the council and appearing before the council.
Okay, and so then when we talk about reporting to the council, we're also recommending, I don't know if I want to call it a board or an oversight committee, et cetera. How exactly is that going to work as far as when they come back? And I mean, do we have pre-meetings, or is it just where we're going to keep gathering back like we have in the past?
It would be a joint meeting between Public Works and Budget and Finance and the report would cover their audited financial statements as well as their annual budget review.
Okay, so do we have anything in our provisions of anything that we're recommending or we're trying to pass here that actually has a greater oversight capacity to it from the council, where we have a member that's out there kind of paying attention a little bit more, sort of like the audit committee, sort of like the MAC, and some of the other things that we're already doing? Is there something that will come out and play it that same way?
It will be a new annual report that doesn't exist currently.
And do we think annual is sufficient, given what we've gone through here of late?
I'll give you my view on that. And so the things you're talking about and Mr. Cooper is responding about are about the next bill, 2019-46, but I think it's appropriate to talk about it in the context of the rates. I think that we have to be careful across a whole spectrum of things to not overreact, because from talking to people who've been around Metro for forever, these set of circumstances with the comptroller being involved and the water rates are anomalous compared to most of the history of Metro. And so having this, a new annual report that specifically lays out the finances that will cause two committees, at least for the foreseeable future, to do a deep dive, I think is enough. I think it would be appropriate for the two committees, I'll talk budget and finance, to ask for some questions more frequently than that. But I don't know that we want to set up getting into reviewing the financial statement for the water department quarterly for the rest of time. I think with better checks and balances, we don't have to worry about this. But I'm open to other suggestions.
Well, and let me, if I may, I'm going to kind of put it in this context with you, Chair, because I think I'm the only person sitting on the floor here that was on the Board of Education when the state did come in and take over. And those scars, if I touch them just right now, I still feel the pain from when that occurred. I don't want to see that with where we are here in the city. I firmly believe we're in a much better position to manage it internally and provide the answers. But what I don't want to do is leave any wiggle room in order for, how do I say this, misinterpretation of what the intentions are and what our expectations are on the floor, not only with this particular department, but any department, but also the mayor's office. I firmly, there's no doubt in my mind the mayor's office is fully engaged on trying to figure out all the mess that we have that are going on. I just also know that I think it's incumbent upon us to do everything we possibly can without overburdening the system to stay abreast of what is actually occurring.
Well, let's, if you don't mind, let's kick the rest of this conversation until we get to the next bill.
Okay, and that's fine. I just, again, because we've got these things buttoned up against each other, and it's a little confusing.
Yeah,
So
I've got some suggestions, but I would like to do it on that bill just so we can keep the conversation flowing.
That's fine. But I want to make sure on 45, Mr. Cooper, did I make the motion to refer it back to the committee, or are we going to have to do that once we get ready to vote?
Yeah, when we get done with the discussion, I'll ask for a new motion that has the re-referral.
All right, thank you, sir.
Councilmember Suara.
Well, 45. I know we're not talking about the amendment that is coming, so I'm not going to delay, but I do have a question which I asked on Wednesday to the director, and that's the fact that the bill, the proposed rate that we're looking at right now, does have an infrastructure component to it. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we're already going to bill the residents for putting some money aside for infrastructure in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then this amendment will be to add to that. Is that correct?
Well, I'm going to defer to Councilman Glover because it's his.
But I wanted to get clarification on that as we're looking at that information, because what people are paying for now will be paying for the water rates, but they're also putting something aside to deal with any emergency in the future. Is that the way the current rate is? Is that correct?
As I understand it, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Vercher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If the sponsor can speak to on his amendment, we just had some discussions earlier as it relates to distribution of resources. How would that be with this these additional dollars deposited in this replacement fund?
Well, he's told us he's not going to move that until next time, and there's going to be some changes to it. Do you want to?
Okay, no.
Okay. And then, Mr. Glover, you're the last in the queue.
So I'm gonna now I do want to delve back into this particular bill. And Chair, if this is not the appropriate time to ask the question, please let me know. Last week, I asked the Water Department, and I believe I asked the administration, help me understand why over the last decade we've had a 3.33% increase in what I would define as inflationary costs, why the cost has perhaps risen higher or at a more rapid pace than national inflation of 1.9. And I thought that we had talked about we'd have an answer on that. Did we get that answer? And if that's not the appropriate time to ask that question, but since we're talking about the money right now, I kind of think this might be the right time to know if we don't have the, those answers, when exactly do we think we'll have those answers?
I think we got an answer in the back of the room here.
Okay.
So there are several contributing factors to what has caused our costs to rise over the last decade or so. One of those is salaries and labor and benefits. So salaries have gone up 17%. And if you were here on Wednesday night, you'll remember there's a few really large areas that we look at. And that's our first and largest expense is salaries. Another thing is chemicals. And in that time period, the cost of water treatment chemicals has gone up 46%. Another one of those items is utilities, and that's gone up in about 10%. So when you start putting those things together, and the amounts those are, that's what causes that rise. In addition, almost every contract we have has an escalation clause, and it's with CPI. But you start putting all that stuff together, and we may use more of one and less of the other. So those are those contributing factors that do put us ahead of the CPI. In addition, the specialized nature of what water and wastewater does make some of these things be more expensive. You know, the cost of steel, that matters a lot. Things like that come into what we're doing.
So then I'm going to be very simplistic on what I'm about to say. Did I know that before I was told this, or was there anything that was put back in writing to us to give us that in a documented form?
We can put that in a document, Councilman.
I just asked for that last Wednesday.
Well, we prepared to answer your question at this hearing, sir.
Okay, and that's fine. I just wanted to make sure, because a lot of times we get caught and we start going down various other paths, and I just think it's important for us to, especially when we're looking at this component, that we understand all the various pieces of it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chair.
I'll say I haven't learned yet to do as good a job as Councilmember Vercher did about making sure to get the answers out and collected. So I'm sorry that we didn't have that before today. Well, Mr. Glover, do you want to go ahead and remake the motion with the 1 week deferral? I'm sorry, with the re-referral?
Yeah. So move the bill
as amended
and re-refer back to committee for third.
All right, so we've got a motion to approve with amendment number 2 added to it, and a re-referral to the Budget and Finance Committee. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we recommend. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Potter. BL 2019-46, Mendez, Syracuse, and others amends the Metro Code to require the Department of Water and Sewerage Services to submit annual reports to the Metro Council. Is there a motion?
Move.
All right, and so start with Mr. Glover. Go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask you the question, I suppose, Chair, and then I'll also defer it to Mr. Cooper. Given the complexity of the issues that we are trying to understand, and we're talking about the timeline and not overburdening any particular department, that we just happen to be talking about water here, but any particular department, as well as this committee, because I assure you, for everyone who is here for the first round, the next several months will be a fun time had by all. And not to spend a greater amount of time in the chamber than we necessarily would need to. Is there any, I guess, openness on behalf of the sponsors to hold this back for another week for us to talk about what might be a little bit more of a timeline to where we get kind of a mid-year report somewhere and work on how this could perhaps benefit the council to understand it as opposed to just a once-a-year report. And it may not be appropriate, but I don't think it's amendable on, now, and this is where I'm asking Mr. Cooper, it's not amendable on third.
It is not.
Okay, that's why I'm asking the question, if I may, Chair. So, and I open it up for the sponsors to respond, and I will do whatever the will of the committee is and the council. Thank you, sir.
Here's what I would suggest so we're all here for another 3 years, 10 months, and the water rates are going to be implemented over a period of time. What I would suggest is that it get deferred, so there's an opportunity to amend it next meeting, and adding a semi-annual status report about how the rollout of the new billing rate structure is going, and that'll give us an opportunity to learn what I think you're suggesting.
So with that, then I will ask that we defer one meeting and bring it back.
All right, I'm gonna, is there a second for that? And then I'm gonna swing through the discussion, just make sure we get out any other points. Councilmember Suara.
I guess what I'm thinking is that I didn't think there was a need because we don't want to overburden this body. But I also think the one that we're passing that is asking them to submit any communication is an opportunity that if something do happen, we have the right to bring them back and ask questions. So as they're getting those communications, and if anything is happening during the year, we can call them back. That's the point of that. So I'm looking at both together rather than individually as the oversight component. So that's my thought. I'm okay with whatever the body decide, but if we're asking them to show their letters and we have the opportunity to bring them back anytime, and then we're just saying at the end of the year, let's see what it is, I think that's adequate without having to want to run the department.
Well, I think it is fair for us to get updates about how the rollout of the new billing structure is, and we could make that be just the next couple years, and that we'd know it was time to check in, and I think that would tell us enough. Councilmember Vercher.
Chair, I don't want to belabor the point, and in most cases, with most departments, this legislation would be good. But admittedly, from the director himself, if we're not asking the right questions, he's not providing full disclosure. And that's probably the nicest way that I can put it. So we already receive reports. We receive the stormwater reports. We receive the capital reports. I don't want this report to just be another report and for the director to say, I'm only answering the minimum as outlined in the legislation, and you're not going to get this answer because you didn't ask the question. Good governance doesn't work that way, Chair.
So I would say on this one that I had this conversation with Mr. Potter as this legislation was being prepared, and he was extremely cooperative in answering the question of what would need to go in an annual report so we didn't have to figure out how to ask the right questions going forward. And between finance, Mr. Cooper, Water Department, the things that this requires in the annual report are specifically designed with trying to deal with the dynamic that you just outlined and make it so it's set in law rather than ad hoc basis, depending on who gets told to do what in the chain of command. Mr. Glover?
So I don't want to repeat what you just said. However, I'd push the button before you said that. I think by taking this, deferring it to one meeting, coming back and wordsmithing it properly, then pointing fingers at the director or pointing fingers at any particular person right now, whether they're on the floor, they're in the chamber, or they're not, is not going to help us fix where we are. I think what we're trying to learn is how do we move forward to where this doesn't happen again. So if in fact we've had our hands popped and they're saying corrective action, let's do it. Let's fix it. Let's take the corrective action. Let's all be adults in the room and let's deal with it and go forward. With that, I do think that for a period of time, Chair, I think it's a good idea for us to say, hey, you know what, after a year, 2 years, it may well be that we don't need to keep delving quite as deeply, and 1 year review may be quite sufficient. We determine when that time comes to be. But I think it's very easy for any of us, myself included, and I'll get on to myself. It's very easy for any of us to point the fingers. Right now, we have the opportunity to fix it. We have the opportunity, and the state didn't have to give us this opportunity. I don't want to keep reminding it, but I'm going to remind it. They didn't have to give us this opportunity, but they did. And so we have it, so let's be responsible, and let's do what this body should be doing, and especially this committee. Let's be the oversight on how we're spending the money when we make the recommendations to the council. So with that, thank you for the indulgence.
Councilmember Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to be clear again. This isn't about pointing fingers. This is about me being elected to represent District 28 and getting the correct information so I can take this back to my constituents and make informed decisions while I'm here in this chamber. The corrective action, I get all that. No one has to belabor that point, but we aren't accountable to the state. We are accountable to the people that elected us, just like these department heads are accountable to the public as well. So we can't ever forget that, or we all just become even more complicit in this mess. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there a motion to defer this one meeting? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of deferring one meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we recommend the one meeting deferral. BL 2019-49, Syracuse O'Connell authorizes a property tax exemption for historic properties owned by charitable institutions in accordance with Tennessee Code Annotated Section 67-5-222. Is there a motion? All right, all lit up. I'm going to start with the sponsor, Mr. Syracuse.
Thank you, Chair. There are still a few things I need to flush out with this, so I'm actually going to request a 2-meeting deferral. Thank you.
Is there a second for that? Second. Anybody wish to discuss the 2-meeting deferral? All right. All in favor of 2-meeting deferral, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We recommend the 2-meeting deferral. BL 2019-51, Mendez, Roberts, and others approves the transfer of the franchise rights held by Access Fiber Group, Inc. to Crown Castle Fiber, LLC. Is there a motion? Councilmember Toombs, are you left over from last one? Okay. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Does this increase any ability to put stuff in the right of way, or no change in?
No, it's really just a
Just a
name
name
change.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Glover?
All right, Mr. Cooper, so it's just, it's really the same company, just a name
Well,
change?
One company was acquired by another company, but it does not provide any additional rights that the existing franchise did not already give.
Okay, so and help me try and remember back if you would. I think we added in here that in the event any change in ownership, is that what prompted this? That is,
That's
okay,
what
all right, thank you, Chair.
It's been properly moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. BL 2019-53, Syracuse, Mendez, and others authorizes the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for purposes of the Lebanon Pike sidewalk improvements. Is there a motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. All right, bills on third reading. BL 2019-3, Syracuse, Murphy, and others amends the Metro Code authorizing Metro government to come under the provisions of Tennessee Code Annotated and establishing a historic property review board empowered to abate property taxes relating to certain improvements or restorations made to historic properties. Sir? And we're going to start with Mr. Syracuse.
Thank you, Chair. Like the other bill, this one still needs to be flushed out just a bit more, so I'm going to move for a two-meeting deferral. Thank you.
Seeing no discussion on the motion for a two-meeting deferral, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We recommend the two-meeting deferral. That's all we have on the agenda. I want to mention one last time, the Director of Finance will be here on December 11 at 4:30 here in the chamber to provide us an update about the city's ongoing and developing response to the budget challenges. Thank you, everybody. Oh, hold on. Council Lady Vercher.
During that meeting, will we be presented with the corrective action as it relates to the budget during that time, or this is just an update from the Director of Finance?
It's going to be an update. I think we're all eagerly awaiting knowing exactly how the $41.5 million gap is going to be filled. I'm
eagerly awaiting.
But December 11, it's not going to be known. So we're going to get the work in progress status report. And that's it, everybody. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.